everybody. Hello. Shh, 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 shh. You're going to get used to these dulcet Essex tones because you're going to hear them a lot tonight. Hi, everybody. My name's Lou Nylander, and I'm going to be the MC this evening. I know that there's been a long queue. People have been telling me. So if you have just popped in, don't worry. Just get yourself a drink. It's a real relaxed atmosphere. Pop over to the bar, get yourself a drink, and let's get going. However, I said I'm the MC, but I'm also going to corral this event so it's on time. I am going to be a taskmaster this evening. The speakers have been prepped. They know if they are close to over-exceeding their time, I'm going to get up. I don't know if you know this, a theme tune of a show. It goes, That is what I will be doing. So if you've seen me getting up, speakers, know that sound's coming. Okay. I'm only kidding. Welcome to Be Bold London. I'm so excited to welcome you to this event today. We have got such a jam-packed agenda for you, and that's why I also have to keep everybody on track. So welcome, changemakers. Firstly, I'd like to play a video, and then we're going to kick off with the event.
What is power?
It's louder than a shout
and softer than a whisper.
It's in every voice, leading us through fear and fire. This is our power.
What is power? I am power.
We are power.
This year, no matter what happens,
We refuse to let anyone take
our power,
Our voice.
our rights.
our opportunities.
This year, we
March forward.
for all of us.
So before we kick off, we would like to thank our sponsors, Taboola. So I've got the amazing Julia Burton-Brown, who's going to say a few words.
Testing. Hello. Hello and welcome to Taboola, everybody. This is like a tidal wave of women. You can't just use group for this, and I think they're still coming in. So welcome. We're so proud to be hosting this event for the second year, actually. And it's my first one, so I'm really, really looking forward to all of the content. I was actually talking to my in-laws over Easter, and I was telling them about this event, telling them about the themes, the speakers, name dropped Gail Porter, and they said to me, "What are you doing? What are you doing in that lineup?" And I said, "No, fair point. I'm just welcoming everyone to the building." So with that said, let's get on with it. Let's really enjoy this event. Let's challenge each other. Let's learn from each other, and hopefully leave today more bold and empowered.
Thank you, Julia. Oh, sorry. Be quiet. Stay there. Will it stay? Yes, it will. Thank you, Julia. So welcome to Be Bold N0W London, an evening dedicated to celebrating courage, amplifying change makers, and igniting action. One of the things that I love about Be Bold London is the fact that it's ordinary women doing extraordinary things. So first up this evening, I know that it's been a hot day, right? People have been rushing from work. I heard there was a ridiculous queue outside. So I want us all to sort of get in the right space for the evening that we're going to sort of receive. So we've got an amazing, amazing person who's going to help us all set our intentions and ground us, not grind. We do enough of that day to day. I don't think we need to do that again. So ground us before we rise ourselves up. So I would love to welcome Corinne Griffith.
Excellent. You are going to grind. So welcome. So I've got 5 minutes with you. I'm a mindfulness coach as well as a mindful DJ. And today we're going to do a little bit of getting in the room. So I'm not going to be asking you to lie down or anything like that. That's not what's going to happen. we're going to just do a little exercise together if you want to humour me a little bit. Is anybody up for that? Yeah. If not, you're going to have to do it anyway. It's not a choice. So, first of all, thank you so much for coming here today. I started a little bit nervous. I can feel it in my tummy, and that's perfectly fine. But all I'm doing now is just looking at these wonderful people in this room. Oh, my gosh. Look at each other. Come on, you turn to the person next to you. You can do it. Look around, just go. Look at the wonderful people in this room. Some of them might not be so wonderful, but don't say it. So we're going to do a little exercise together and just bring us into this space and just remembering why we're here, which is about being open to possibilities, that be bold, change makers, listening to some fabulous people, and I'm looking forward to that too. So underneath your chair, you'll have a special present for you. I'd like you to take it out. If you don't like it, I do apologise. It's a box of raisins. Life's amazing. Isn't it? We don't have to talk about the raisins. You just need to take the raisins from underneath the table. The table. Excellent. Thank you so much for raisin collecting. So we're going to do our first little, just bringing us into this space, okay? We're going to listen to a bit of music, okay? I'm going to play a bit of music. Okay. I'm going to just bring that round a little bit, yes. No, this go up a little bit as well. Touch. Fabulous, okay. So just roll off your shoulders. Okay. In this wonderful room together, I want you to just spend a moment by taking a raisin out of that box. If you don't like raisins, I'm sorry. If you don't like raisins, what? You've got an item of food, that's fine. If you're not, grab a pen, or if you've got a lanyard or something, just have an item with you. But yes, could you do that for me? If you've eaten the raisin, you've already missed out. I asked you to take the raisin out the box, people. We have 2.5 minutes. We need to make this count. Raisin out. Focus. Focus. Okay, just look at the raisin for me. Spend a little bit of time looking at the raisin. You might be like, why am I looking at this raisin? Okay, just want you to look at the raisin and see if there's anything on there that you've not seen before. I really want you to explore it. If you're not using a raisin, use an item. What am I doing with this raisin? Smell the raisin. Smell the item. Explore the item. Feel the item. You're like, why? Okay. So what you're doing here for a moment, stop talking. What we're doing here is doing exploration. And what that exploration is going, is there anything on this raisin I've noticed that I've not seen before? And what we're doing today, whilst we listen to this music, just either close your eyes or lower your gaze, whatever feels comfortable as you're listening to the music. Just be open to possibilities. Things might feel a bit weird when you're just looking at your raisin. You might think, I can't understand, but this is all about, some things might not feel natural for you in life, but possibilities come from trying things that are different and seeing things that are different. So all I'd like you to do now with that raisin, if you have it, you can't do it if you've got an item like a lanyard, don't put it in your mouth, please. Just want you to take that raisin, pop it on your tongue. Don't bite it. Bite it once. So that's it. Okay, notice that lovely texture of that raisin down your throat, if you like raisin. And you can swallow that raisin. How good does it feel for those raisin lovers to take time? And it's all about really just taking that moment to pause, explore something that's familiar, being open to possibilities. And that's what you're going to do today. Music's a great way of doing that, listening to something that you don't normally listen to, being open to possibilities, noticing, oh, I don't like that. And then just going, actually, I can just be with it for a little bit. And that's all I encourage you to do this afternoon, this evening as well, with the speakers that you have. just be open to possibilities. Thank you so much for having me. That's the time.
Yeah, you did.
That's the time.
Yep, she stuck to time. So, who knew you could have so much fun with a raisin, eh? Right, our next speaker is the embodiment of resilience. Be prepared to be moved and motivated by Felicity Ashley.
Imagine what you could do if you saw challenges as stepping stones to your dreams and your goals. And if instead of saying I can't, you said I can and I will. Well, in 2022, this is what I did. Alongside 3 other bold, courageous, and slightly bonkers working mums, including my sister who's here tonight, I rode over 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean, from the Canaries to Antigua. And in doing that, I became one of fewer than 250 women to have ever rode an ocean. Now, while that may sound extraordinary, I am not extraordinary. I'm not a superhero, I'm not an elite athlete. I'm an everyday working mum of 3, I'm a wife, a sister, a daughter, and like many of you guys, I've spent most of my career to date in marketing. But an opportunity came along, and from somewhere I mustered up enough boldness and enough bravery to say yes. And that decision changed the course of my life and my career. And I want to spend the next few minutes telling you a little bit about my story. A few weeks after having had a hip replacement, my sister, Pip, called me and she said, "Dids," that's my family name. She said, "Dids, I've got a boat. Do you want to row the Atlantic?" And of course, I said, no. I said, and I reeled off all sorts of reasons why I couldn't do it. I said, but the kids are too young. They were 2, 4, and 6 at the time. I said, I can't leave them for that long, and I've just had a hip replacement. I think you'd probably all agree there were fairly robust reasons for saying no. But Pip can be very persuasive. You might even call her a little bit bossy. And she said something to me which really resonated, and it's a message and a lesson that will stay with me for life. She said, "Stop giving me reasons why you can't, and start giving me reasons why you can." That simple thing she said lit this spark in me. And when I put down the phone, I was grinning from ear to ear, and I had this fire in my belly because I knew I was going to say yes. It was just a small matter of a conversation with my husband to convince him of this plan. As it turns out, he knows me pretty well. He knows that when I get the bit between my teeth, there's little point in putting up a fight. And to his credit and my relief, admittedly with a resigned look on his face, he said, "This can either be a long conversation or a short one, so let's make it a short one." And with that hurdle out of the way, it didn't take me long to find my cans. Of course, I couldn't do it yet, but this shiny new hip had given me a new lease of life. It wasn't an excuse to say no. It was my reason to say yes. It was my can. And because I'd found my can, I did say yes. And in doing that, I took the first step on the long road to achieving something extraordinary. And when you're setting out on the path to a big, challenging goal, you don't have to have all of the answers. You don't have to have the route fully mapped out. We certainly didn't. You just need to be able to take the first step. And so often, that's simply saying yes, committing. Now, in the interest of time and my 10 minutes, I'm going to fast forward 2 years now and miss out all of the training and, in fact, most of the row itself. But let me just say this. Rowing the Atlantic was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. It was both life-changing and life-affirming. And I honestly couldn't recommend it more. And it was such an enormous privilege to be able to do that with my sister. So here we are again, just having crossed the finishing line of the world's toughest row in English Harbour, Antigua, waving our flares in the air, basking in the glory of what we just achieved. To add a little bit of colour around it, we completed the row in 40 days, smashing our goal of 45 days. This bunch of midlife mums, in an equally old and worn out boat, came 13th out of a fleet of 37 boats. Beating many of the men's and the mixed crews. And most people, quite frankly, couldn't believe it. You see, I think because we were midlife mums, they'd expected us to just give it a go, float in somewhere near the back of the fleet a few weeks later. But we wanted to challenge those perceptions about what midlife women can do. And we worked really, really hard, and we showed that with the right mindset, with the right people around you, and yes, with a lot of hard work, ordinary people like us can achieve extraordinary things. So mission accomplished. And if you're thinking that's quite enough excitement for a little while, I'd be inclined to agree. But life had other ideas. So I finished the row. I was reunited with my family in Antigua, got a small holiday, and went back home. I went back to work. Life seemed to be getting back to normal. But then life did what it always tends to do just when you think it's going so well. And it well and truly burst my bubble. In fact, it threw one whopping great curveball right into the pit of my stomach. Because just a few weeks after completing the row, just a few weeks after this photo was taken, I was diagnosed with stage 3 bowel cancer. Wow, that was a punch in the guts. In the blink of an eye, my world had turned upside down. For a few days, I didn't know if I'd get to see my children grow up. I was facing the prospect of surgery, chemo, and a very uncertain future. And it was almost inconceivable to me that this should be happening. Because I just rode the Atlantic, and I was young, at least in cancer terms, and I was fitter and stronger than I'd ever been. And I think it would have been understandable at that point for me to think, why me? But I'm an eternal optimist, and turning it on its head, and all of the reasons that I gave for why me, being young, fit, and strong, were actually the reasons that I was able to think, do you know what? Why not me? Because I'm young, fit, and strong, and because I've just proven that I'm mentally and physically resilient rowing the Atlantic, I know that I'm better placed than almost anyone else to get through this. And I did, with the help of my family, friends, colleagues, and the amazing NHS. I did get through it, but I didn't just get through it. I used it as a catalyst for positive change. And so, after my cancer treatment, I took the fairly bold decision to leave my role in marketing in the corporate world to become a professional speaker. And that was fueled by this new desire to show other women, other people, that they are so much more capable than they think, and that ordinary women, everyday women like me, like you, can achieve extraordinary things. Now, as a marketeer, I love a story. It runs in the blood. And a story needs to have a good beginning, a middle, and an end. And I've kind of always felt that my story has lacked the ending. Lots of people ask, what next? And so to bring things right up to date, I have decided to give my story an ending, or at least an end of chapter 1. And in 2 weeks' time, I'll be off here. Not right to the top. I will be tackling the world's highest marathon, the Everest Base Camp Marathon. And that's about proving to myself that I'm better, but not only that I'm better, that I've come back stronger. It's about inspiring other people who might be going through similar challenges. And it's about continuing to show that everyday people like us can do extraordinary things. Now, if you're familiar with the format of tonight's event, you'll know that it's customary to leave you with 3 messages or 3 actions. So let me start mine. Number 1, the biggest barriers to achieving your dreams are usually ourselves. We sabotage our dreams and our goals with these limiting beliefs, self-doubt. So what I'd love you all to do is, whenever you catch yourself saying, I can't, reframe that. Tell yourself I can, and I will, because we all can. And number two, having said we all can, doesn't mean we all will. And I think one of the biggest differences between action and inaction is not ability, it's motivation. You have to actually want to do something to be able to get through all the challenges. So find your why, understand what motivates you. And then lastly, we procrastinate over these big, bold actions. We wait for the perfect time, but there's rarely a right time. The right time is now. As I've learned from experience, you never know what's around the corner. So seize the opportunities that come your way. But more than that, go and make your own opportunities. Don't wait for the right time to be bold. Be bold now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Felicity. I met Felicity at a marketing event, and when I met her, I knew that she was a baddie, and I needed to be friends with her. So I'm so excited that she's here today and is able to share her story, which is so inspirational. So we're flying from one inspirational woman to another. Our next speaker has worked with over 100,000 young people in creative and has single-handedly raised over £1 million, and she's not a Nepo baby, so can you imagine how she did that? So I'd love to welcome May Yip to the stage. Thank you.
Oh, hi everyone. Thank you, Felicity, that was so good. I'm a bit nervous now because I'm after you. But yes, thanks so much for having me here. And yeah, Felicity, you took a risk. How many hands up who loves taking risks? Oh, okay. I looked over here, I was like, oh, quite a lot. And then I looked over there and I was like, not that many. Okay, not that many. Well, hopefully in the next 10 minutes, when I ask you the same question, you guys are all going to have your hands up in the air. Because for me, taking risks really changed my whole life. And I've completely forgotten what I was going to say. Sorry. Wait 1 second. Sorry, I was trying to go. Yes. Okay. So, taking risks completely changed my life because I played it safe, and now I am running my own business. I am running my own business with my best friend, and yes, we've nearly. Well, I said, Lou, we haven't actually raised over £1 million, but nearly £1 million. Yeah, you know. Oh, well, yeah. So I grew up in a Chinese immigrant family, and my grandparents took huge risk, but for some reason my parents never really wanted me and my brothers to take a risk. We were always told, keep your head down, do your homework, don't make a scene. And that is basically who I became. I was a really kind of shy, quiet little girl who played, all of the rules, who followed all of the rules. And, sorry, completely forgot. And so, yeah, looking back now, I realized that actually there was a rebel inside me. And I am actually a maverick at heart. And there was a tiny risk taker in me. And little did I know that actually that tiny risk taker was going to grow into a bigger risk taker. And ultimately create the life that I am living today. So I remember my earliest memory of taking a risk, and I was probably about 6 or 7 years old. And my best friend, Jessie Anand, she always brought a packed lunch into school because of her allergies. And I was really jealous because I hated the school lunches, and me and all the other kids had to have school lunches. So one week when my mum was away on holiday, my dad had to, my poor unsuspecting dad had to look after me. And on kind of day 3, I think I was like, okay, I'm going to have the courage to lie to my dad and tell him that we were all going on a school trip and that my parents needed to make everyone a packed lunch. So my dad, I was actually really in shock. He didn't ask any questions. He just made me the packed lunch. So I strolled into school, sat next to Jessie, got my packed lunch out, and I was so happy. I was like on top of the world. And I think that, to me, was my first ever risk, and it paid off. And that gave me the confidence to take even more risks. So fast forward a couple of years, I'm now 10 years old, and it was show and tell. And that's when you bring in an item and you talk about it to the class. And I hadn't prepared, basically, I'd forgotten. So I remember I came into school and I picked the first book I could see off the shelf, and it was all to do with butterflies. And it was my go. I got up and I basically winged it, and I opened the book and I pretty much just read from the book. And my teacher was so impressed. She was like, oh my gosh, May, you are top of the class. She said I was top of the class, and she sent me to the headmistress's office to go get a special certificate. So you guys are probably thinking, May, your childhood experiences have turned you into a cheat and a liar. But actually, I think, luckily, that didn't happen. And so what I think I learned from that is actually something more valuable, is that taking risks really lead to unexpected rewards, and rewards that I think you just can't even imagine unless you take the leap. So as I grew older, I realized that actually the pressure to de-risk my life got a lot stronger. I had to, play it a bit more safe. So when I was thinking about my career, Asian parents, I don't know if you guys have Asian parents, they are 3 career choices: accountant, lawyer, doctor. So I was good at maths, so I basically had to go down the accountancy route. But I knew deep down that it wasn't for me. And so anyway, I kind of just followed my parents. They obviously wanted me to have a stable career, stable income. And anyway, so I studied accountancy at uni, and then I went and I got a job at PwC, which is one of the top accountancy firms. And I ended up working there. So, life on paper looked really good. My parents were really proud and everything. But then in the first year, when I was only 21, my mum was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And she did, unfortunately, pass away that year. And so that, shifts everything. Like, that changes everything. And I think I realized that life was too short to not take any risks. So I realized at that point I was going to take the biggest risk of my life, and that was to quit. So I quit my job. And luckily, I didn't quit by myself. I quit with my best friend, Sam. She was also really unhappy in her career. And we decided to start a business. And fast forward 10 years, we're now still business partners, which is amazing. And we started a company called Eric. And basically, Eric is a careers discovery platform supporting young people into the creative industries. But it was really based on our own, experience of getting terrible careers advice. So yeah, we started off with career events, and we wanted to turn boring career fairs into festivals. And then the pandemic hit, so then we had to pivot, and we launched a digital platform, which is now the Eric app. And now we have over 150,000 young people using our app. Oh. And I think we also saw huge commercial opportunity as well. So we, realized that actually this wasn't a charity, but it was actually could be a commercial thing, because loads of brands are struggling to connect with young people. So now we have, some of the top brands like Penguin, Warner Music, Financial Times coming to promote and work with us, and we help them, connect with young people in a more interesting way. And I think for Sam and I, the mantra that we use or have always had is really is to fail fast. Because actually failing fast means taking risks all the time. And yeah, taking risks for us is really how we got to where we are today. And one of the biggest things that taking risks for us is when it came to investment. Because when it came to raising investment, that was honestly one of the hardest things we've ever done. We are not, we don't have MBAs. We don't have any experience. We started, the business quite young. And less than 1% of funding goes to female-founded companies, which is insane. So we decided, the rebel in us was shaking, and we were like, you know what, we've got to do it, because honestly, we were going to shut the business down. So the rebel came out, and we decided to try everything we could. We thought outside the box, and then we basically cold emailed everyone we could. We found tools. We paid a guy off Fiverr.com to find us all these emails. And we honestly emailed thousands of people. And we did it. We raised nearly £1 million. And last year we found one investor from LinkedIn. I cold DM'd her, and she invested £250,000. So yeah, I think that just proves that, it's not experience and it's not luck, I don't think. I genuinely think it is taking a risk. So I want all of you guys, hopefully, to just take more risks in your life. And yeah, be bold. Be bold, take more risks, and honestly, it will work. And if it hits, it will pay off and everything will change. So yeah. I really hope you guys will take more risks.
Thank you so much, May, for that. Oh, I knew I was going to do that one time. I was waiting for the time to do it. I might put it there. Will it stay there? Probably not. Will that stay? Please stay. Yeah. Awesome. My mantra, or the thing that I always have in my head, is fortune favours the brave. So that really resonated with me, because it's what I think about taking risks as well. So next up, we have got the amazing co-leads for Be Bold Girls, and they've got some special guests with us. So I'd like to welcome Susana Valverde Solano and Laura Boland to come up and bring her their special guests as well. Are you all going to stand here? Do you need the mic?
Hello, everybody. Thank you. So, what is Be Bold Girls? So, Be Bold Girls is the youth program of Be Bold for Change. It's been running for 3 years in the United States, and Laura and myself officially launched in London a year ago, actually. So it's been running for 12 months. So Be Bold Girls is a program that is designed by girls and for girls. How did we do this? When we decided that we wanted to do this program, launch this program in UK, we actually created a focus group to understand what the girls aged 12 to 17 actually needed. We're here to listen, and we're here to provide. With these focus groups, we created a year one program of needs and workshops to provide them with the right skills and tools so they could become change makers in their own communities.
your name and your school, and also what do you love about the Be Bold Girls program? Yes, Amaya.
Sorry. My name's Amaya Harris. I'm 15 and I go to Larkmead School. And I like Be Bold Girls because it's a really welcoming place and we have constant support and access to new ideas.
Hi, my name's Trisha and I'm 17 years old and I go to Royal Latin School. I like Be Bold Girls because it's a great community, it has a great support system. You meet amazing friends and you get to connect with such inspiring people. It's a comfortable space and I always enjoy myself there. And they really do help you have like soft skills to build on how you want to share yourself. Because we all have voices and we all have ideas, but Be Bold Girls really helps you project that in a way that everyone else can listen.
Hi, my name is Panita and I'm 16 years old and I go to the Henrietta Barnett School. Personally, I love the networking and brainstorming aspect. It is such a beautiful thing to watch girls of different ages and different backgrounds come together to work towards a particular goal, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it.
Thank you. So now that we got to know our Be Bold girls today, let me bring you a bit of context. Why are they here? For year one program, we ran 2 in-person events. And on our second in-person event, we hosted 3 workshops. By the end of these 3 workshops, we split the girls into teams. And then they had to apply the skills that they learned, thinking about a change they wanted to make in their own community if they have these tools and skills. The girls that we have here today were our Change Maker Challenge winners. So, Tricia, could you please explain the audience what was your Change Maker Challenge?
So our idea was a modeling agency called Skin Deep, and it was really important to us because especially young girls, they have access, especially young girls now who have access to the internet, have seen unrealistic and unattainable standards of beauty. And these standards are placed on them before they can even gain an understanding of and form their own opinion of what beauty is. And too often, you see girls comparing their own natural appearances to filtered and edited versions online. And so they start blaming themselves and asking questions as to why they don't look like that and what they need to change in order to fit those criterias. And they start losing confidence in themselves. So we wanted Skin Deep to portray an honest, unfiltered, diverse and inclusive image. And we wanted girls to see models that actually look like them and models that they can see themselves in. And we wanted to take beauty back from the filters and bring it back to something real and show that freckles, scars, acne, they're all natural, and we wanted our modeling agency to show that.
Pranita, a question for you next. Why do you think that it's important for girls like yourselves to see yourselves represented in the products and the media that you use?
It is so important for girls to see themselves reflected in the products they use and the media they consume, as representation is not just about being seen, it is knowing that you are valued. And when girls see their own faces, their own bodies and stories reflected with dignity and pride, it tells them that you are enough and you have a place here. Without that reflection, too many people begin to doubt their worth. Body positivity is a vital part of this. It teaches every girl that her body is not something to change or hide, but something to be proud of, exactly as it is. When we show the true diversity of who girls are in every shape, shade, and story, we build a generation that knows how to stand tall, dream boldly, and lead fearlessly. Representation is not just important, it's a foundation of confidence, ambition, and change. And every girl deserves to see a world that reflects her power, her beauty, and her possibility.
Thank you. Amaya, what would you like to ask the brand managers and advertising agencies in the audience today to take into consideration when putting together marketing strategies for beauty and fashion brands moving forward?
Okay, so first of all, I think a lot of brands have a very limited range of shades, especially in the makeup industry. And I'd really like to see that change because I think everyone deserves a space that they can feel welcome and like they belong. And makeup is a basic part of pretty much every woman's life. You shouldn't have to search to find the shade that you are because that's who you are. And I also think that, especially in the advertising and branding side of things, things like acne and scars and blemishes, they're not really shown, even though they're a very normal thing to have, and they're part of growing up, and there's nothing wrong with that. If companies do decide to edit and airbrush photos and take those things out, I think that they should be a bit more transparent about it so that young girls don't get the wrong idea about who they are and what they should look like.
Thank you, Amaya. And then Trisha, I just want to ask you, what do you think is different about the Be Bold Girls program, and why do we need programs like this?
Yeah, so I think Be Bold Girls has done a fantastic job of including girls of all ages, including really young girls. And I was quite surprised to see such young girls, aged 11 to 12, having such clear views and opinions, and having such insightful ideas and conversations. And I think Be Bold Girls has done an incredible job of understanding that all these sorts of problems affect them as well. Even at such a young age, they're still exposed to all these sort of discriminations and ideas of what they should look like and everything. So I think Be Bold Girls has done an amazing job of not patronizing them or sugarcoating them into believing such things, and make them understand that if this problem affects them, they can also be a part of the solution. And it doesn't hide from them, and it's a place where they can genuinely ask questions, make mistakes, and actually practice being bold.
Thank you so much for your bravery in front of all these incredible women coming here. You express yourself so well. You should be very proud. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
we actually have really exciting news. Be Bold Girls UK has signed a partnership with the University of Greenwich, which means for the next 3 years, our in-person events are going to be hosted at University of Greenwich campuses. I would like to thank Yvette from University of Greenwich and Jen from Be Bold Girls UK for making this possible. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for having us today. I just want to remind you all that the Be Bold Girls program is free for all girls to attend. And 2 actions from us. Please sign up your Be Bold Girls to our program by following the QR code, and or share with anyone you think be interested to join. And also follow our LinkedIn page where you can find all the information about our future events. Thank you so much for having us, and thank you to the girls.
Thank you. Can we have another round of applause for these amazing girls? I know. You might want to take them with you. Take them with you. Yeah, if you could. Yeah. I've asked them to take the mics with them because I can just imagine that they'll all just fall on the floor and then we're going to be in an interesting thing. So our next speaker, we're going to go back to a speaker. Our next speaker is Stacey Delaney. She is a passionate advocate and change maker. And she's making a significant impact in our industry. So I'd love to welcome Stacey to share our journey with her.
Oh, it's working. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Stacey Delaney, and actually I work here at Taboola. So I didn't have far to come, and I have spoken on this stage before, but not at Be Bold now. And what I'm going to talk to you today about is inclusive leadership and the ripple effect that that can have. Now, that was a really tough crowd to follow, but you talked about something that I'm going to talk about too, which is representation, which you'll hear come up. But Just wanted to get a little bit of audience participation at the start, and I wanted you to raise your hand if you have a friend, a family member, a colleague, someone that's very close to you that identifies as LGBTQ+. So that means that they might have a sexual orientation of something that's not straight. They could be transgender, they could be non-binary, they could be gender fluid. Come on, be brave, be brave. Yeah, exactly. So we all know someone that's in this community. Now, would it surprise you to know that about 40% of people hide their identity if they're in this community because of fear of repercussions, of being critiqued or discriminated against? So if you think about all your loved ones, about half of those people that you just put your hand up for are not open about their identity to everyone. So Nikki asked me, is there progress in this space? So yes, there is. So I'm specifically interested in people being out in the workplace. And around 84% of people that identify as LGBTQ+ are out to at least one person at work, according to Equality Rising, and that's up from 54% in 2018. But there's still a long way to go, right? There's still a lot of people that are not feeling safe to be themselves. And 85% of people, according to Pride in Leadership, 85% of people in this community face career obstacles, including being passed up for promotions. Now, you might have heard in the press that there was a really big change a couple of weeks ago that dramatically affected the rights of transgender people in the UK. So the Supreme Court ruled that the legal definition of being a woman is someone that was born woman as a sex at birth, basically, biological sex. And so if you are in the queer community right now, especially if you're in the trans community, you might not feel totally safe being in the UK right now, and certainly being open about yourself at work. So now my story. So I am a member of the queer community. I'm a bisexual woman. And to tell you a little bit about myself, so I was not always comfortable with my own sexual orientation. It took me a long time to work out who I was. And I didn't want to be in the community. I didn't want it to be gay, lesbian, bi, whatever it was. I wanted to be straight like all the other girls. And it took me quite a long time to really work out who I was. And I think one of the things is representation. I didn't see a lot of people like me out there, and I didn't have a label for what I was, essentially. And I started to come out, practice coming out between the ages of about 21 to 24. And it was not a nice experience for me. I felt a lot of shame about who I was. And when someone maybe didn't respond in a positive way to that, it just pushed me back in the closet, okay? So I really had a difficult journey, and it took me probably longer than many other people in order to work out who I was and then to be open and honest about who I was and comfortable with it, right? And I'm comfortable with it now, by the way. I'm here talking to you on stage, which is good. I'm a little bit older than 24 now, yeah. But then also looking at my work journey as well, right? So this is all to say I just got a lot of baggage, right? A lot of baggage about who I was. And so when I was at work, I would conveniently admit that we at the weekend meant me and my wife or me and my girlfriend. And I felt really uncomfortable being out of work to certain people. I was out to some people, and others I didn't feel safe to be out. I worked in commercial roles, and I specifically was scared of being out to clients. What if they don't want to do business with me? What if they're going to judge me, for example? And I don't know, I come out a lot. A lot of queer people have to come out a lot. It's not obvious that you're in the community. The thing that I get asked all the time is, what does your husband do? I find this to be an archaic kind of question anyway. What does your husband do? And each time that happens, I have to sort of decide, am I going to say I've got a wife? Do I feel safe to come out to you right now? Sometimes I'm in the back of a cab, right? I'm not really feeling safe to come out. Once I was having a massage. I had an amazing masseuse, and they asked me, and I was like, I really don't know what their views are. What if they don't want to massage me after I tell them? Am I going to tell them or not? What if they break my neck? So anyway, so having to cut, yeah, okay, maybe that was extreme. Thanks, thanks, Gail. It's all unhelpful things that are going through my mind. So anyway, at work at Taboola, a few years ago, we started to ride the wave of diversity, equity, inclusion, and a lot of employee resource groups got formed from the grassroots. some amazing communities that are still really thriving here. And no one put their hand forward to organise one for the queer community. And I was like, I'm not doing it. Like, I was not out and proud. I was out at work, but I didn't ever see myself running the community. But ultimately, I was bold, and I got over myself, and I thought, I'm a leader in this business. I can't allow this community to be unseen and unrepresented. And I think the reason why I struggled with my own journey was that, like I say, I didn't see other people like me. And I thought, well, if I start this thing, maybe other people in the community will feel safer, they will see people thriving, and we'll just get the conversation on the agenda. So I formed the employee resource group, Taboola Pride. There's some swag somewhere, by the way, some rainbowy things somewhere for you if you like, probably over there. And I formed it with a colleague in the US, Dave, and we launched the program in 4 continents. And we found leaders in each area. And we just started talking about the queer experience at work and in life. And that was, as you can imagine, organising panels, speaking at events, posting on social media. And it was honestly terrifying to talk about my own sexual orientation. I've done it on this stage a few times, right? Probably cried here as well. And I talk about marketing and data and customer acquisition all the time, but actually talking to people about something so personal was so, so scary, because you don't know whether someone will judge you or whatever it might be. And especially posting on social media about it. So the reason that I'm here is Joanna asked me to speak because she saw something I posted on social about coming out day, which was to come out for all the people that couldn't, because I'm in a privileged position, right? What have I got to lose? I'm already a senior person in this company, but lots of other people wouldn't feel safe. So even though it's scary for me to talk about that in these forums, I always do it, because every single time I do speak up, afterwards someone come and speak to me and they're like, I'm actually in the community, I'm not out, or now I am out, but now I feel more seen. And but also, like, you all put your hand up at the start. You're not all in the community, but you're allies, of course. But it touches so many people, and that's the ripple effect, right? So I have people come up to me and they're like, I know how to speak to my trans cousin now, my gay brother, my parent, or whatever it might be. And the best story that someone told me is that we organised this Pride panel, and it was like, what does LGBTQ plus mean? What is transgender? Like, back to basics, basically. And one of the senior leaders at the company, she said to me, last night after your panel, I went back home, and at the dinner table with my husband and my 3 kids, we talked about what I learned. We talked about sexual orientation, gender identity, and we just had a judgment-free conversation. And I was like, what a household, what a woman. But like, what an amazing thing to have happened. And that's when I realized the ripple effect of the stories that you can tell. And so in terms of queer inclusion, like, there's all the stats to say, you probably know this, but in terms of like the impact of brands including queer people in their ads, for example, has a really big impact on what you will ultimately buy. 3 out of 4 LGBTQ+ themed ads outperform generic ads in driving brand recall. People buy from brands that support this community, and that's because, look at you all. No, I don't think anyone didn't put their hand up. It's because everyone knows someone, right? So what was I going to say to you? Right, 3 things you can do. Okay, first one is when you maybe hear people sharing a really interesting, well, first of all, stories really resonate with people, and being authentic, I think, really, really resonates with people. So I would think about yourself. You might have, everyone's got their thing, right? I don't know what your thing is. You know what my thing is. But think about telling your story. Think about just being yourself. Maybe that's the first one. Be yourself. Be yourself, and know and understand that when you tell your stories to other people, it can really make an impact beyond just that little bit of time that you give. When you hear other amazing stories, amplify them. Tell other people about them. I talked to you about my colleague who went home and spoke to her kids about what she'd learned, and they probably feel in a much more comfortable way to be themselves now. And finally, sponsor other people. Sponsor people that are putting their hand up and doing this thing. Thank them. It can be stressful for them to be change makers. yes, that's my three tips. And that's a wrap. Thank you very much for listening. And you can follow me there if you like.
Thank you so much, Stacey. Can I give you that for a minute to hold? Thank you so much, Stacey. I think representation really, really matters, so it's really important that we keep having these conversations. So next up, we have Cecile Duyard. Cecile has an amazing story. She's a health advocate, and she's going to talk to us about her journey and how she's pushed through and tried to advocate for women when it comes to women's health. So come up, Cecile.
Thank you. Is it working? It's working. Hi, everyone. Such inspiring women and girls. Now, how many of you have heard the word endometriosis? Raise your hand. Okay, I will explain in a minute how much that means to me, because when I started, nobody had heard of it. Yes, it's really good to be here. I'm going to talk to you about riding the wave, and more specifically, I'm going to tell you about my journey with endometriosis. But before I get started, I'm going to show you a cut down of a short film that I produced a couple of years ago for Endometriosis Awareness Month, and it's featuring women suffering from endometriosis. It's time indeed. Now, being stuck in bed for me started when I was 12, and it was very much around the periods, before and during the periods. And by my early 30s, it escalated, and I actually had daily pain, and that's when I became bedridden. Now, I waited 18 years for a diagnosis, and when I finally got it, I had 3 laparoscopies in 18 months, and a bunch of hormonal treatments, and none of it worked. And it was pretty invasive, it was very difficult to get my head around, what I was facing. And I felt overwhelmed, and I really didn't know what to do with myself. In 2010, after feeling like a guinea pig, I couldn't work, I couldn't walk, and I couldn't think straight, I said, enough. And late that year, I met a fertility specialist in Cape Town, and he recommended that I try acupuncture. So I gave it a go, and within weeks and regular sessions, 90% of my pain went away. I couldn't believe it. I thought, wow, that's like a second chance in life. As a thank you to life, I signed up for the British 10K, and everyone laughed because I had never really exercised before. So everyone was like, good luck to you. You look, I deserved it. I picked it up really quickly, and I fell in love with running. And basically, running makes me feel so powerful, it makes me feel so strong. And I know it can sound a little bit counterintuitive, suffering from endometriosis, being bedridden, and going for a run. But really, running has made an awful lot of difference for me over the years, and I've achieved so much more than what I thought I could do physically. I couldn't walk to the kitchen to fix myself a cup of tea, let alone going for a run. And this has helped me a lot, and this is why I'm standing here today, and why I talk about the charity work that I've done in relation to endometriosis, to actually encourage women and leverage exercise to better themselves and better their health. Now, I talk about, riding the wave, riding the big wave. Endometriosis aside, there's always seems to be something coming at us as women, Don't get me started with the perimenopause. Actually, I would get started, but I can not remember. Yeah. There's that. Some of you know, some of you don't know yet. It's coming. I had, infertility, cancer scares. Last year I had a traumatic brain injury, as you do. There always seems to be something happening, and as women we need to brace ourselves. I think what endometriosis has taught me is to actually realize when something's not quite right. When I was younger, I didn't know. I didn't know what was right, what was wrong. I didn't have the education, I didn't have the knowledge. And now, I know and I recognize the sign, and I can raise my voice and say there's something wrong. We, as women, are faced with a lot of things, hardship, ignorance, taboos that society inflicts upon us. It's tough. We need to build resilience. And, very importantly, we need to make space for the ups and downs, because no matter how much, we try to avoid it, it's coming. And there will be a time when something else comes along. So, equipping ourselves is very important. And what I mean by that is knowledge is key, I think it's crucial that we empower ourselves and we take charge of our care, whether physical or mental. I think, when I was first diagnosed, I felt really overwhelmed by it all. I didn't really quite understand what was going on. And I left it up to the doctors to make decisions on my behalf. Looking back, it's such a bad decision. But what did I know? I don't know. I just wanted to get rid of this thing. I've learned a lot. I've done some research. I worked and I spoke to a lot of women across the world about endometriosis, how, what it means for them and how they live with it. And that's enabled me to actually understand, how key knowledge is, because you can step up for yourself and you can demand care, whether it's with your employers or your doctor. You have the confidence to say, I deserve this. You know what good treatment looks like. Now, a good support system is very important as well. And, it's about reaching out to people around us, family, friends, to get some support when we need it, a shoulder to cry on, so maybe somebody to go to a doctor's appointment with, and sometimes maybe somebody to kick your butt, to keep you going. That's also needed. What it boils down to when I talk about my running, and you can probably tell that I'm passionate about it, it comes down to finding something that works for you and something that you love. I met a lot of women and they said to me, I prefer pain. Running, not my thing, thank you. I can take that, that's fine. I think there's merit. I've done a bit of research, and there's merit around cardio work in relation to estrogen dominant conditions, endometriosis being one of them. But that aside, I think it's about finding something that works, because you can sustain it, because you can maintain it. It'll make you happy as well. And building your confidence, again, very important to walk into your doctor's office and say, you will not dictate what I should be doing with my own body. You will, make that scan happen because I know I need it. It's about building that confidence and raising your voice when it matters. Keep going. So I'm quite careful with that phrase, because it has its time and it has its space. And sometimes, it's not okay to say to somebody, keep going and you'll win. I don't know what there is to win, but there's certainly a lot of fights to be fought. So you've heard tonight, and I'm sure you've experienced it yourselves. So keep going, but we need to think about the best time to say that and be sympathetic and encouraging of people. Now, when you fall, I fall a lot, physically and metaphorically, actually. When you fall, it's about, recognizing that you're going through a challenge, and it's okay. Everyone falls. The best, when in my 20s, I believed that I was invincible, and actually I wasn't at all. And I fell from a very high level because I wasn't, ready for it. Permission to pause is very important, because, sometimes we just need to take the time to think about what we're going through, what it means to us, and how we can go about it. And pausing is not about giving up. Pausing is about giving you enough space and enough time to actually process what you go through, and the ability to recover and the ability to heal. And I do that a lot. I'm doing this right now, in fact. I have to reset. I'm taking my time. And it's not failure. It's okay. Asking for help, a big thing. I thought I could do it all myself. I think you get the gist. I'm quite a bit of a maverick. We talked about this earlier. It doesn't work sometimes, you know. You can't do it all on your own. You have to ask for help. And, you know, endometriosis is a bit tricky because it's, you know, about talking about periods and talking about your ovaries. And I think the majority of London knows about my ovaries right now. And that's okay. Actually, as a matter of fact, now I talk about endometriosis to women, young girls, but also male of any age. And if they say to me, you know, I talked about taboos earlier, if they say to me, well, periods, so gross. Oh, I don't want to hear about that. Well, you will hear about that. because, thank you, and I'm doing this with perimenopause now, I get double whammy. It's important because they have daughters, they have wives, they have sisters, they have friends, they have co-workers, right? I did some work with perimenopause at work, and everyone's like, woo, old lady in the house. There is nothing to be ashamed about. What does that mean? What do we know? You know, we all go through this. Actually, as a matter of fact, 100% of women go through menopause, right? Endometriosis is 1 in 10. Now, 1 in 1, and 1 in a million. So, you know, ask for help. Don't be ashamed to talk about women's health. There is nothing to be ashamed about. Actually, we should be proud because our body is amazing, regardless of everything that we go through. And keep going. Well, when you've paused and when you're ready, yes, keep going. Now, my 3 things, because I've spoken a lot and I'm probably out of time. What does that mean practically? So acknowledging the challenges is about recognition, about how we feel. And maybe we are diminished because of our physical conditions or our stress, mental health, and the hurdles that we're facing, the adversity that we're facing as women. And it's recognizing that it's okay and it's common, it happens. And our situation may be a little bit different than others, but nonetheless, it's valid. Your feelings are always valid. Now, learning about your body and your well-being, that was really important to me, and I hope I communicated a message that is really important because it's power. Because you empower yourself to make decisions for your well-being, for your health, and those that are sustainable, you know, something that is good for you. And looking back and helping others, that's really dear to my heart. You know, we have wonderful, wonderful girls in this room today. And if I do it for somebody, for the younger girls that do not yet have the confidence to actually say, I demand good care, and I want to be looked after, and I want to be acknowledged. So, you know, you all have a power, and you were building your career towards more sort of senior position, assertiveness, actually at any level. Look aside, look behind you. And once you've built yourself and once you've built your knowledge and your confidence, don't forget about the person that's coming next to you, because together we can really change things. I never ever want a younger girl like the one you saw in the video earlier go through what I've been through, because that means that everything is pointless. So I really believe that together we can do it.
Thank you so much, Cecile. How are we doing? Is everyone alive? How are you feeling? Feeling good? How are we feeling on the left side? Oh, wow. Oh, dear. Can I have it a bit better? How are you feeling on the left-hand side? Yes, thank you. In the middle, how are you feeling? Come on this side. You can do better. Come on. How are you feeling, girls? I felt they may win. Right. We are, you know what, we are keeping this juggernaut on track. And actually we've got our next guest, I'm super excited about. I didn't fangirl her earlier because I didn't want to just, you know, obviously put her off her stride. But I love her. So I'm just so excited. For those that don't know me, I'm a marketing director, and I used to be the global marketing director of a company called Unruly, which was owned by News UK. So I have seen this lovely lady speak before, and I'm super excited. She is the founder of Noon. She's written a book called Much More to Come, and it's about redefining midlife for women. And she was the former Sunday Times editor, and she's the chair of Women in Journalism UK. So please welcome Eleanor Mills to the stage.
Hello everyone, what an amazing audience, and a big, huge congratulations to all the fantastic girls. I thought your project sounded brilliant. And actually, what I'm going to talk about is really relevant, because I'm talking about representation of older women. So you're totally right. So this is my organisation. So you're totally right about the representation of, different kinds of skin colours or like acne, or I've got 2 girls who are 21 and 18, so it's very familiar territory to me. But it's not just bad for teenagers, it's bad for everybody, and that's what I'm going to talk about. And this is something that is really close to my heart, and I feel really passionate about, because I spent 25 years as a very senior editor in UK media, and I was also chair of something called Women in Journalism. And I've been obsessed by the fact that the media is not a mirror. It's not like you look at it and you look at it and it gives you a direct reflection of who you are. It's a distorting lens. And it's a distorting lens through male eyes, often through old, posh, white male eyes. And so this is what I'm going to talk to you about, because I'm really passionate about this. And I also really know what I'm talking about, because I had a front row seat. I was in the front of the juggernaut of the mainstream media for 25 years. I edited the Sunday Times magazine. I was the editorial director of the Sunday Times. I was an interviewer. I've interviewed everyone from home. We'll get onto this in a sec. Anyway, so when I talk about the media, I really have sat inside it and felt it and been in the rooms and made the arguments. So now I run something called Noon. I talk about queenagers. Queenagers are women like 45 plus, midlife queens, living their best lives. And what we try and do at Noon is to tell a new, more positive story about the second half of women's lives, because we are not done yet. Okay, so this is me. So, yeah, sorry, I've given you that. You know about that. It's a rather weird picture. So so that's me outside number 10 Downing Street, where I had gone to interview Theresa May. Some of you will remember the interview. It was the one where she wore her leather trousers. That was my interview. It was a bit of a car crash for Theresa May, because she did not tell me anything in the interview. I actually turned the cassette recorder off, or my thing off at one point, and went, "You've got to tell me something. This is meant to be like a front page story and the cover of the magazine, and I've got nothing." And then she came down with the leather trousers, and I was like, well, at least now we've got a story. Not necessarily the story she thought it was going to be, but hey. But anyway, I also did like Gorbachev, One Direction. I sat on a sofa surrounded by all of One Direction. That was quite fun. I was a columnist, all that stuff. You've seen that. So just before I turned 50, just at the beginning of the pandemic, I was fired. Well, I wasn't fired. I was made redundant. They brought somebody else in, and I was out. That happens a lot as you get senior in companies. We used to call the 13th floor, which is where all the executives were, the dead zone. It's a bit like climbing Everest. You kind of get to a point where the air is thin, death can come at any time. So I thought I was all going rather well. It was all great. I was this big journalistic honcho, and then I wasn't. And this happens to so many women. Hang on, I'm going to go on a bit. So I set up. Hang on. Let me go back to this one. I left the Sunday Times. I had been there since I was 26. I was very sad. My children would say things like, "What's the mum weather like today?" Drizzle, rainstorm, full-on thunderstorm. How much was I crying? I can joke about it now, but it wasn't particularly fun. Because what happened was my whole identity had been wrapped up with doing this job, and then suddenly I was out of the job, and I really had no idea who I was. And I looked around me, and I remember Googling midlife redundancy, and all I got was the HMRC website, which... the tax man, for those of you who haven't had to fill in your stats yet. And let me tell you, it was not the kind of inspiring content that I was after. So I had a good look around me, and I've always believed that it's important to be the change that you want to see in the world. And I looked around, and I couldn't see anything that was telling a more positive story about women. And I started looking at it, and we are now all quite likely to live till we're 100. And then I thought, 100, I'm 50. That means it's only lunchtime, you know. And I feel like, and I wrote this article for the Telegraph about being made redundant and how awful I felt. The headline they put on it, was I on the scrap heap? And this is not me making it up. This is truly the headline that they put on it. Welcome to the 50-something redundancy club. And I wrote this piece. It was a very honest piece about how horrible it was and how humiliated I felt and how shameful it was. And I had about 10,000 people get in touch with me saying, this has happened to me too. Nobody talks about redundancy. It's a bit like death. You know, no one wants to say the word. They don't want to ring you up. It's really grim. And I write about that in my book. So because I looked around and I couldn't see anything that was actually going to help anyone like me reinvent. And also because I've been a columnist for a very long time. So I had a kind of confidence that things that had happened to me were probably happening to other people. Because when you write about stuff, your life, whatever, every week, you kind of know that when you really write from the heart and you're really true about something that's going on in your life, that always connects. So that's one thing I want you all to really remember, that if you're going through something awful, you won't be the only one. And if you're honest about it, you'll get people to kind of, you know, galvanise around you and to be sympathetic. So I set up this organisation called Noon, partly because in the 100-year life, 50 is only halfway through, it's lunchtime, so I called it Noon. Thought it was quite easy. And I also thought that was a way of rebranding this whole thing, because one of the most terrible things in our culture is the sense of, you know, what are women for after 50? If we're entirely seen through a kind of media lens and a culture which basically values women for being young, fanciable, kind of fecund, so fertile, that is the kind of patriarchal lens on women. When you hit 50, you know, or you know, you're no longer seen as hot, fanciable, and you can't have kids anymore because you've hit the menopause. You're basically pretty done, right? It's through that lens. And that made me really angry, because I think that that's like seeing women in black and white, you know, and we're not just valuable for being fertile or hot. We're valuable for all the things that we are: our creativity, our kindness, our intelligence, our compassion, our energy, our being able to row across the Atlantic, you know, all the incredible things that we've heard about today. And it made me feel really angry that there were all these women, and all of you coming up behind us, feeling that there was some kind of a shelf life on being a woman, that men can have a full life and women have a half life, particularly in kind of media and TV and that kind of thing. And that nobody seemed to be telling a more positive story about what it was possible to be, you know, 45, 50 plus. So that's why, I mean, I've written a lot of headlines in my life, and one of the ladies at one of my focus groups said to me, she said, Eleanor, I feel like a teenager, but in my own house with posh sheets and nice tea. Which I really love. And then there was another woman who said to me, you know, I'm in my 60s and I feel like I'm just getting the hang of this life thing. I keep thinking, don't walk out in front of a bus and, like, you know, mess it all up. You know, I'm just getting the hang of this. And I also spend a lot of time in Jamaica, where they talk about older women often as queens, and I love that. So in my stupid kind of headline writing brain, I came up with Queenager, which I thought was a really good description of how it felt to be kind of 50 and setting out on a whole new path. And also, in the 100-year life, we're all going to have to keep pivoting. I'm looking at my daughter who's just left university, and she's in that wonderful phase where you are in your early 20s, where you're kind of looking around and going, what am I going to be? You know, she's a bit scared about it. You know, what do I do? It's like, what am I going to be? But I think that there's this amazing opportunity when we hit midlife, where we get that again. Because basically, whatever we've been between the ages of about 25 and 50, kind of comes to an end after that. You know, if you've been super successful at your career, which I had, it can still all end in chaos. You know, it's absolutely not a given that it's all going to be all right. And also, as we all live for longer, we're going to all have to change and pivot and do different things. So I now run a community of women called Noon, home of the Queenager, which is, and we run retreats and events, and we do lots of, this is us at a Queenager night about finance. This was the winning team who'd won a big prize for knowing about money. This is one of our circles in Surrey. I'm a big believer about getting people into cold water. partly because I love it and it was what saved me after my own defenestration from the Sunday Times, but also because I find that if we are going to change, if you're going to move from being what you have been to something new, you've got to go into uncharted territory. And I think often as we get old, we can get, and actually when we're younger too, we can be a bit frightened of things that we haven't done before, of being outside our comfort zone. So what I do with all the poor women, or the lovely, amazing queenagers who come to Neen, is I often take them to somewhere with a lake, and I encourage them to get in it with me. And I do that not because I'm a sadist, but because the experience of doing something that you were frightened of, and it being okay, actually not just being okay, it being wonderful and making you feel ecstatic and, you know, is important, not just for its own sake, but as a metaphor for the other things that you can do in your life. And I think one of the other really key thing that I would like you to take away from this talk is that it's really important to put yourselves in situations which are uncomfortable or scary or that make you feel challenged. Because, and there's that great old phrase, if you're not sitting on the edge, you're taking up too much room. But on top of that, if you're not in that place, you're not really stretching yourself. I'm not saying you need to be there all the time, but I think particularly when you know you need to get from one place to another, then pushing yourself really out of your comfort zone, going and doing something that you haven't done before, can give you the confidence required to take a step into the unknown. And so that's what I'm often doing when I'm putting these ladies into, or the invitation being to the ladies to get into the lake with me. So I wrote a book, because I've always been a writer. I started, and this is also about how we talk about change makers, but change doesn't happen from people who are like some other species, who are kind of like superstars. It comes from all of us individually when we do something brave and we do something new. And I started Noon when I was completely on my uppers after the Sunday Times, and I started a Substack, and I started writing a newsletter every weekend, because I was used to having a column on a Sunday, and I didn't have it anymore. So I started writing a very honest Substack about what it was like to start again at 50, what I was seeing around me, and it became a Substack bestseller. It really hit a nerve. And why it hit a nerve was because I was being really honest about all those things in the culture that we don't really think about that kind of representation. So did you know that women over 50 are behind over 90% of all household consumer spending decisions? And yet guess how many percentage of advertising they appear in? Any guess?
5%?
Yeah, it's between 6 and 10%. So there's a massive discrepancy there between the financial clout and power of the queenager and the way that we're made to feel invisible in the culture. And we did a big piece of research which found that actually over half of women at 50 plus feel invisible or unrepresented, which is completely crazy, and just in terms of pure economics, considering the amount of kind of money that we're all controlling. And also that by 2030, over half of the workforce is over 50. So we're in the middle. Everyone talks about AI and about climate change, but actually one of the hugest changes that's going on in our world at the moment is a humongous demographic shift. We're going from a triangle which used to have the oldest at the top, and there weren't that many of them, and younger people at the bottom. It's now a square, because there are so many more older people. So here we are in this huge kind of temple to kind of marketing and advertising. But none of those brands are speaking to the women who have really got the power. And they're not speaking to them because of what I call gendered ageism, which is where ageism meets sexism. Because I've sat in too many rooms with old chaps in marketing and advertising who, when you show them a picture of an older woman, go, oh God, no, I don't want to see her looking like that. I want a picture of her when she was young and hot. I had that with an editor of mine at the Sunday Times. I'd had a shoot done for the magazine, black and white, 70-year-old actress, and he was like, oh God, no, I'm not putting that on the cover. So, and the picture editor routinely would say things to me like, oh, look, brighten up the page. And that meant putting a picture of a pretty girl. So although it feels like, we're in 2025 now, we're not in the 70s anymore, where it used to be completely normal to have kind of cars advertised with women draped over the bonnet, like they were coming like a bowl of fruit. We're not actually that far away from that thinking in terms of exactly what you lovely young women were saying about kind of representation and blemishes. It's like, what are women for? Are we there just, that's that wonderful book, Women Don't Owe You Pretty. And I don't think, I know I've got to stop, I don't think we're there yet. So my book, Much More to Come, I'll be very quick, became a bestseller last summer, which was really pleasing given what had happened. There it is on the number 4 on the bestseller list. And our motto at Noon is much more to come, which is partly why we did this. But what I really want all of you to realise, we did this massive piece of research I haven't even had a chance to talk about, which is about how women at this point go through a whole load of things. But what's crucial is that midlife is not a crisis, it's a chrysalis. That we go through all this stuff at around 50, but actually what we found was that the women who'd been through the most ended up the happiest, because they'd shed the stuff they no longer needed in their lives, and then they ended up in a place where they had a life that they'd chosen that was resonant for them. And I want all of you in the room to look forward to being 50 as when it all starts to get good. And until then, you can see yourselves as queenagers in training. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. Thank you. Right. I would love, Katie, can you join me? We are actually going to have a bit of a Q&A now, so we're going to change up the structure a little bit, so you actually get to hear me speak for a while. And yes, I do have your mic. There you go, my love. So Katie, who's going to speak next, is the founder of a brilliant community called Flexible Working People. She has empowered hundreds of thousands of people, and she's an advocate for flexible work. On LinkedIn, she's a top voice. And I know you from working at Microsoft and working in this industry. So let's welcome Katie to the stage. So give her a round of applause.
Got massive imposter syndrome.
Don't we all, babe? Don't we all? Well, I also have the brain fog as well, so I'm glad someone said that, because I'm like, but I'm feeling like a bit of a snack now, because I'm not quite 50, so I'm about 11s. So I'm thinking, like, it's not lunchtime, it's 11s. That's how I'm feeling at the moment. Katie, could you introduce yourselves to the room and tell us a bit about what you do and why you're here speaking today?
I'd love to. Hi everyone, I'm Katie Friedman, and thanks for that lovely introduction. I haven't driven a boat across the Atlantic, and I haven't written a book, but here I am nonetheless, very privileged to have been invited. I founded actually, I set up a Facebook group, so not that exciting, about 6-7 years ago, called Flexible Working for Mums Like Me. It's since changed to a business called Flexible Working People. And I am a champion of flexible working and for enabling people to get back into the workplace who don't necessarily fit the 9-to-5 mould. And I know that there'll be plenty of women in here who have been through their own personal challenges in the workplace. So that's what I do, and that's why I'm here.
Awesome. And in preparation for this event, we had a bit of a chit-chat, didn't we? We talked about sort of like work-life balances and challenges that you might have had in your professional career, and why that sort of like drove you down the path to set up this Facebook group. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I did a law degree because my mum told me to. I didn't really want to be a lawyer, but I thought that was a good idea. And then I went into legal publishing, and I worked my way up the career ladder, and I ended up as an acting director of trade marketing at Microsoft. There are plenty of Microsoft people here. Put your hands up if you're ex-Microsoft, current Microsoft. And my lovely co-acting director of marketing is here too. Anita, where are you? Yay.
Don't be shy, Anita.
So it's kind of a bit full circle to be here talking about this, and all these incredible women in the room and a couple of men, David, and any others. Yeah, it's a bit full circle to be here talking about this with all my old colleagues. But basically, I worked really hard to get into a senior role at Microsoft, and I'd worked really hard in previous jobs. And then I had my first child, my daughter. Now she's 13, Jessica. And while I was on maternity leave, I got made redundant. That word, redundant, which makes you feel like shit, which basically makes you feel like you're not worthy. And
like an old computer that no one wants anymore.
A bit knackered.
Yeah.
Yes, and being redundant is a bit shit. And just like Eleanor just said, it made me go, well, what am I doing? What am I going to do with this? And actually, there was a choice to make at the time. Did I want to go back and work full time and get myself back on the career ladder? And I felt like the choice was tricky because I couldn't find a senior job doing what I was doing without compromise. And the compromise was that I wasn't going to be there to bring up my child and then went on to have a second. So it was a really messy few years for me because I couldn't find a job that paid me what I wanted to be paid with the nice car that I was driving, traveling around the world and doing fabulous things. And it really pissed me off because I kept seeing people at the school gate and all the people who had done similar big jobs. It really pissed me off that they were all sitting on the sidelines going, oh, I fell out of my career and I got made redundant, or I've had kids and I can't get back in. And it was just like, is it us that's broken? Or maybe there's something wrong with the workplace. Maybe the workplace is broken because they're not offering enough women a route back into the workplace with any flexibility. And it really pissed me off. And being pissed off drove me to set up flexible working for mums like me. And very quickly, just like you said, Eleanor, I galvanised hundreds, thousands of women who all went, well, I've been feeling a bit like that. And, you know, I totally align with everything you're saying. So I was driven by a mission to help women to get back into the workplace. And so flexible working for mums like me became flexible working people because actually by just talking about women needing flexibility, we perpetuate this thing that it's about women, and it's not about women, it's about everybody, and everybody deserves some element of flexibility if that's what they want. And that our lives are messy and they're not linear, and our careers aren't our life. We have children, we have parents, we have all sorts of things that take us away from our careers, and we are more than just our careers. Anyway, so that's a long answer to my messy bit where I think we laughed, didn't we? Because I said that I used to hide in the toilet at work because I got a really big job as a commercial director at the bread factory, which is part of Gale's Bakery. And once the bakery nearly burnt down and I was on the school run and I was nowhere to be seen. And then I used to hide in the toilet with my handbag at 3 o'clock because I had to go and pick up my kids, and everyone would go, have a nice evening, bye. And I'd think, oh shit, and hide and run out the door. And I just didn't like it very much. So I decided that I was going to help more people find flexible work, and that's what I've been doing. So there's now 100,000 plus people in my world, in my community, and I help people to find flexible jobs that enable them to have careers that work for them on terms that work for them, but still able to bring their brilliant minds back into the workplace.
I think that... I'll let them clap. I think what you said about hiding in the toilet, I don't have children, but I have had like appointments, and I was caring for my dad at one point. He was suffering from cancer, and I used to have to take him to chemo appointments. And I myself felt uncomfortable leaving early, even though I knew I had a valid reason on why I had to leave, but that whole hesitation of like, oh, I've got to go. So I think lots of people, whether they're parents or not, can also feel that pressure to be present and presenteeism in the workplace. So kind of talking a little bit more about presenteeism, you know, we've had the pandemic, remote working and stuff like that, but do you still think there's a pressure for people in the workplace? It might not be physical presenteeism now, but is there sort of like virtual presenteeism, and have we really come far with the flexibility given where we are now with these hybrid working systems, or are people still feeling like there's not that flexibility for them?
So it's a really good question. I think the pandemic had a massive, massive impact on flexible working, and I think before people were a bit afraid to talk about it.
Yeah.
And we all know Anna Whitehouse, or many of you will know Mother Pucker. I call myself the Temu version of Mother Pucker.
Temu? Don't put yourself down like that. No Temu.
I said that to someone earlier, and then I got told off, or they didn't get the joke.
Never
But
say
anyway,
Temu, babe.
Sorry,
No.
Never mind. Anyway, so presenteeism. So yes, I think we need to stop basing success in jobs around how long we sit at our desk. And, 9 to 5, full-time, it's an archaic term, really. Like, when we think about jobs, why do we go, well, that's full-time, or it's part-time? Like, does it really matter? And I think that's the key. We talk about full-time jobs. Every job is, by default, full-time. Why is a job full-time? Shouldn't we be thinking about what is the job? How do we design this job so that we get the best output? Should we be defining success by the amount of time we sit at our desks, or should we be defining success by what we deliver, the KPIs that we meet, and the quality and the outputs? So back to your question, which is, what is presenteeism still important? It's been a really fun, I call it the hokey cokey, which is we're all in the office, out the office, around the office, in the office, out the office.
It's like when Boris told us whether we were going to have
Exactly.
Christmas or not. You might have Christmas, you might not, you might be
in
able
the
to see
office,
people.
out the office, we all do the hokey cokey. So that's been going on since the pandemic. There's been a lot of in and out, and there's been a lot of return to office. I won't say return to work, I'll say return to office mandates, which has been a bit shit for a lot of people, because a lot of people got used to working from home. And I know there'll be people in the room who were very happily working from home and being very productive, and then got told, oh, we're all coming back to the office now because, we've got to collaborate, and you can't collaborate virtually. We can only collaborate in person. All have to be in the office looking at each other in order to be able to be successful and collaborate. And actually, presenteeism is a bit of a make-up for I don't really trust you, because we don't all need to be seen to be doing our jobs. So I would say, let's start judging jobs by outputs. Let's stop judging them by people sitting in an office. I do get that not everyone wants to be at home, and I don't think that flexible working is about being at home or remote working. Flexible working is a huge spectrum. So there's hybrid working, there's full-time flexible working. There's just companies that care about their people and know that they've got other shit going on in their lives, and they don't have to just be in the office all the time. So when I say flexible working, I'm not talking about part-time, and I'm not talking about being part-arsed or it's not that at all. It's just about having that flexibility to be able to do your job and deliver what you need to deliver without being obsessed about where you're delivering it. And it's about how, why, when, where, not about where and when.
Yeah. When we were having a chat as well, you stated that you think that the number one way that we can close the gender equality